not August 31st. So with that, Mr. President, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator King. Senator Ernst, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and gentlemen. Thank you for being here today as we continue to examine the repercussions of President Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan and the abandonment of Americans to the hands of the Taliban. Mr. Call, Dr. Call, is it true that President Biden said we wouldn't leave when there were Americans left behind?
We have not left Americans behind. They continue to get out.
We left Americans behind.
We did not leave Americans behind. They continue to get out.
Did the DOD, you represent the DOD,
31st.
Dr. Call, did the DOD leave before all Americans were out?
It was the consensus judgment that leaving on August 31st was the best way to continue.
So the
to get Americans
DOD,
out.
General Mingus, did our soldiers leave before all Americans were out?
Yes, ma'am. The last airplane left the evening of the 30th, morning of the 31st of August.
Thank you for your straightforward answer, General Mingus. Dr. Call, is there more or less risk of terror attacks against Americans and American interests because of the precipitous withdrawal of American military capability from the region?
I think the intelligence community assesses that the overall risk to the homeland across the world is at its lowest point since 9/11. We've already discussed the possibility that ISIS-K and al-Qaeda could reconstitute, and we have to be vigilant against that in Afghanistan.
That does not sound like a low risk when you have just told us that the possibility of attack from ISIS-K to our homeland could be 6 to 12 months from now.
The intelligence community assesses they could build that capability. We need to be vigilant in disrupting that.
So it doesn't sound like low risk. So, Dr. Call, what threat assessments did you use for planning the security environment that would occur after the U.S. withdrawal? What assessments?
Well, when I came into office, the decision had already been made, and I was overseeing, from a civilian perspective, the retrograde operations.
Yes, I understand. You informed me the last time in a closed session that you were busy sitting on the couch, so you weren't paying attention to those assessments, which I disagreed with, because I do believe that in a position such as yours, you should absolutely be keeping up with various assessments, especially as we're pulling out our military troops, leaving Americans and SIV holders behind. So since you came into office, those assessments that were used by others, did they prove to be accurate?
I think the consensus, as we discussed a couple of minutes ago, the assessments constantly change. So originally, the intelligence community assessed 1 to 2 years after the withdrawal of U.S. forces would be the point where the ANDSF might collapse. It then became closer to a year, and then months to years, and then weeks to months, and then days to weeks in August. And I was paying attention to all of those assessments once I was in the position.
Thank you. And that would mean that any policy recommendations and planning recommendations that were made at that time are now ill-fitted for the security environment that we're now facing.
We were posturing to an over-the-horizon posture even before the ANDSF collapsed. Obviously, the ANDSF collapse makes that mission harder, but hard is not impossible.
What regional force postures, and this is going back to a number of questions you've already had, what other regional force postures, capabilities, ISR, are we now recommending be readied to deal with the security environment that is now true on the ground?
So we have a robust presence in the Gulf. Beyond that, we should really talk about this in the closed session.
And just in the time remaining as well, what measures have you recommended to address the reconstitution that we're now learning about with ISIS-K and al-Qaeda?
Well, I think we need to remain vigilant against that threat and collecting intelligence, and we can talk about exactly how we're doing that in the closed session. But we also need to build out more capability, so it's not just reliant on the facilities we have in the Arabian Gulf.
And just in the remaining time I have, thank you, gentlemen, again for being here today. We are going to continue looking into this. I do hope we are able to form an outside committee that can take a look at the past 20 years of the war on terror. But I also want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the men and women that have served our great United States Armed Forces and all that they have given and their families have given over the course of the past 20 years. They have faced significant and sometimes insurmountable challenges, and yet they have overcome and they have served us well. And we can never diminish their service, especially in the face of an administration that would not listen to our military leaders. So God bless them and their service to our great United States. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Gillibrand, please. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, want to commend the service of all of our service members who have served in Afghanistan and the intelligence officers and Afghan personnel who supported them. I want to focus on the last point that Senator Ernst made